All right, I think we're ready to pick this thing back up, finish this thing off hopefully. Haven't decided how I want to connect power to it yet, but we'll get there when we get there. Yeah, like these resistors, R4, 5, 6, 7, so forth, that is not at all the same numbers that are on this board. Those numbers should be 51 through 60. So I do, however, have instructions. I see here that they're 1K. And as you saw, the schematic called for 2.2K. Man, that is satisfying. It's hard to explain, but how it fills up the pad is very cool. So you see all that smoke? That's the flux burning up, so that's why I need to add more flux before I do phase 3. Now there's still some flux in that solder right there. That's why they're nice and shiny. But once I start heating it up, trying to get the component set into it, then all that flux is going to get burned up and the component's not going to want to set in very well. I almost touched the iron just then, which is not a cool thing to do because it potentially will drop solder onto the board. Here it's not so bad though, to tell you the truth, because there's no through holes. It's really with the through holes that's a bad thing. So we can do this a little bit off the camera. Yeah. It's a matter of, and you know, if I have to flip the board around, I'll just move the board around. No big deal. Now here's where I'm thinking that I might want to start doing this side instead. We'll find out the hard way. The problem with overthinking things is simply this. If you can do the thing, do it the wrong way, correct your mistake, and then do it the right way, faster than it takes for you to figure out which way was the way you're supposed to do it, and you know you don't really damage anything, you don't lose much time, probably better to just go ahead and just do it. Now, in terms of the transistors, I'm not really sure. We do have these up here at the top. I'm going to go ahead and get those. And I'm just going to start dropping flux everywhere. Now that rather trying to let go, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the iron. Unfortunately, the cable is getting in the way of stuff, and we got it out of the way. Iron looks pretty good. Yeah, you see when the right pad has no solder on it, it is so much easier to hold down. So that's definitely part of it. Now this is the trickiest part by far. That's good enough. I still feel like these tweezers, however, are causing the component to just pull up too much. Let's go back to the straight ones. And there are other curved ones, like these particular curved ones, even though they're very pointy, like these, not flatheaded or whatever. They're very long where they're curved out. And it might be that like I would be better off with one that has a less of a curve coming out. There we go. That was much better. Near perfect. Not that I know what perfect is. Yeah, I feel like these tweezers are better. But I'm glad that I remembered to at least try those others. So now I'm soldering these in backwards, upside down, and the electrons are going to come falling out. Oh well. I felt like that was very flat. That one was nice. That one went in very nicely. Okay, I've only got two more here in the well. I feel like I lost one. I'm pretty sure I did. In fact, I know I did. Oh my goodness gracious. Have you seen what I've been doing? I have not been paying attention. Feel free to laugh at me. This is an easy fix though. I might need some more flux. We'll start here with, this is not a diode. See what I did wrong? This will not be a terribly hard fix. I can come down here to R54. In the back of my mind, I was like, why am I running out of resistors? I was like, there was only needed 10. And I'm like, I'm not even going to be able to get all of these. Okay, so I realized that I didn't finish one of my stories that I started yesterday. And that was talking about just some of my introductions or trying to get into electronics. I was talking about an elective in audio engineering that I took that was sort of like basic electronics 101, and it was not an electrical engineering course. What that means is that it was not in that particular department. So what that meant is that the hours counted towards your degree. And that it had absolutely nothing to do with that department. So then what that in turn meant was that they had their own instructor. And he was pretty cool. And he was not like someone who had to vie for tenure in a department like electrical engineering or computer science. He was more of an adjunct, and those departments do have such adjuncts and so forth, but this is just like a more kind of casual kind of thing. Really a good gig if you can get it, to tell you the truth, because you're not, in some ways it's better to always be a college professor because of the tenure and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? But one thing that people don't realize is all of the politics that are present in the university hierarchies. And a job like this person had is kind of cool because in some ways you don't have to deal with that stuff. And as long as the tenured professors like you, it's pretty good, and it helps if the administration, as well. But of course, if there's any kind of recession and whatnot, they can cut those jobs like that. I did well in the class. I passed. I don't know what grade I made. I want to say I probably got a B. I probably didn't do very well on the tests, but I did well on the projects, and it wasn't like they weren't trying to fail us. That's the thing. It was like really the only way that you could fail something like this was if you just didn't show up and just didn't care. So one of the projects that we did in this elective electronics course for audio engineering was we built a cable tester. And that was so cool. So he gave us the bill. I'm sure he said it was a bill of materials. He probably even called it a BOM, and then explain what that was and all that stuff in one ear and out the other because I had no experience to it. He probably even talked about data sheets in one ear out the other because I had no idea what to do with any of that information. And he had us go to Radio Shack. We had to buy all the stuff ourselves. And he gave us the schematic. And it was basically just a matter of like looking at it and figuring out like what to wire. And I honestly don't remember building this thing hardly at all. What I do remember is cracking the plastic enclosure, trying to drill the holes. And I'm thinking, I don't even remember how I drilled the holes. You see what I'm saying? And whatever soldering iron I bought was one of those like cheap ones that just had the cord going straight to the iron that you just plug into the wall kind of thing. Again, no idea what kind of solder I was using. Definitely wasn't using any kind of flux. Who knows how I was, whatever, yada yada. But the thing is the dang thing worked when I was done. It worked. The thing that killed me, though, was that I had no clue how the thing worked. And I really wanted to understand how it worked. Our instructor wanted us to know how this thing worked. That was kind of the point of taking the class, was to understand what was going on and have a better understanding of how to apply this stuff in the studio. If nothing else, it definitely helps with getting that signal flow down, yeah? And nobody could explain to me the mystery of voltage versus current, which I've been kind of going over here and there. They just kept saying the same thing, giving me the definitions and the whole water analogy thing, and none of that helped because, it didn't help me to look at the schematic and to understand how to know what signal was going where and so forth. So why did I mention Matt Mahaffey? Well, the reason why I mentioned Matt Mahaffey is he stole my cable tester. No, he didn't steal it actually. He was taking classes at the same university, and we were also hanging out at the same abode where there was a lot of music people and a lot of music production and recording happening way out in the country at this particular farmhouse. But while he was out there, and I built that cable tester, and I had it out there with the band that I was practicing with, and he and the other people, like, they just got a lot of great use out of it. And then, like, things kind of happen, where people come and go and leave and all that kind of stuff. And next thing I know, it's like, we're my people and his people are separating ways and going, like, our own separate ways. And like, he just ended up with the cable tester, and he said something to me about it, and I told him, I said, no, just keep it, man. Like you wanted to use it more than me or any of my people, so you hang on to it and you keep it. There's no way that thing survived where he went later. I'm sure that at some point he got like a professional or whatnot. And the whole time the enclosure was cracked. It had that compromised crack in it the whole time. And he didn't care. He loved it. I am fairly sure, and oh my goodness gracious, I do want to check the directions again, but I think that's the right orientation. The green is supposed to be the cathode. And if you notice very carefully, look at this white silk screen, the vertical on the side of this rectangle. This one's thicker on the left. Maybe kind of hard to tell with the flux being in the way, but this one's thinner, this one's thicker, and the thicker one is the cathode. And I'm not going to probably do the press down thing. I don't think I'm going to need to. Yeah, these are kind of tricky to get soldered in. I figured that they would be not terribly easy to do. I will confess, the thing I'm having difficulty understanding is what I'm actually soldering them, like, where on the component is actually being soldered. I think it's underneath it. Yeah, I think it's underneath it. Next time I get one upside down, I'll pay more attention. Okay, so now I'm doing this other side. Now I'm going to solder the cathode. Just because. And it really shouldn't matter which one you do first. Oh no, I'm lost. Because they're clear, it's kind of hard to tell what I'm looking at right now. But I'm pretty sure that the tab is on the bottom. Crap. Yeah. Okay, check this out. I actually worked in a warehouse for a company that did video, live video for, bands, big bands. And I was just helping them get their end of season going. They were like getting a lot. Actually, no, I don't know if it was end of season. They were swapping out gear. They were bringing gear off the road back into the warehouse. Whoa, and doing inventory. So we were like testing stuff, cleaning stuff, getting it all ready to be stored and to be programmed for the next show. So I got to, like, see those big video arrays taken down, put together. pretty intense. It's pretty hard work too. And one guy had a cush job, and it was doing this right here. Those video arrays are made up of LEDs, and what ends up happening is that, like, when what we were doing is we were getting all of the video. So imagine like the huge screen after it's like put together. We were putting together the screen so that we could see if there were any bad LEDs on the panels. So there was, like, 6 of us getting these panels out of the road cases and then slamming them into position. And like myself and some of these other people were newbies. We'd never done this before, so they were telling us, what to do. And it was a lot of like just trust and faith at first until you saw what actually, what was going on. And say, oh, okay, now we got it. And then we were very useful at that point because we didn't need to be told what to do. And then somebody would go around, like one of the actual trained employees, they would go around and mark with tape. And then there was a guy who would take it and he would replace the LEDs, and he was just using, like right here, a soldering gun. He was not even using, he was doing his, by bare eye. He actually had a bear, and they just used the bear's eye. Not exactly sure what this guy's qualification or where he got his training from, yada, yada, yada. At the time, I didn't know as much as I know now. Now I can, definitely do that job. I think I'm just proving it right now. But, I didn't want his job. I was very fascinated, and I spoke with him and asked him questions, and he was very cool. Like, he knew that I wasn't, after his job or anything. But it's like the difference in the amount of physical work, exertion, I should say, that we were doing versus what he was doing was night and day. And to me, that's just kind of weird. You know what I mean? So, like, if I was him or in that position, I would be like, hey, let me, I'm going to do some of this hard work anyways, just to get some free exercise and get paid for it, man. I mean, you don't want to get injured in the process, of course. But you see, I learned a lesson that lazy people don't know. And I'm not calling this person lazy, even though I am, but I'm really not. Is that doing a job like that or doing what I'm doing right now, you could still get injured. And I don't mean getting injured like health-wise by breathing in the fumes over a long period of time, or long exposure to leaded solder, burning yourself, cutting yourself. I'm talking about just simple sciatica, the sitting disease. It's really wild, man. It's like the human body actually needs some amount of physical exertion. Yep. All right. And I was just thinking of Uncle Bill, poor Uncle Bill. I think we got it. Would help if I clean the iron tip. So I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but my neighbor's cat is being trained. He's also being a very, very bad cat, I can tell. He likes to fight. And he always wants to fight me every time I visit. So I think that I did this wrong, at least in terms of like strategically trying to make it easy on myself to where I can just go around in a circle. I don't know that I'm ever going to solder this kit like this again. So, you know, I try not to do a kit more than one time. I tell you, life is ironic because I used to live in Los Angeles, and my buddy still there. He's got a studio in Van Nuys, which is not too far from Northridge. You know, it's not an awesome commute. Nothing is in LA. And it's just ironic, you know, all these things I'm talking about. Like when I was living in LA, I had no clue about any of this stuff, how any of this stuff, you know, works. And I was still under such assumptions like you couldn't repair stuff like this. And, you know, that's not an unfair assessment from a layman's viewpoint. It's one of a bit of ignorance, if not nescience, but it's not uncommon or unwarranted because what it does kind of boil down to is that, well, yeah, I mean, some of this stuff actually is not worth fixing because it's cheaper to just replace it. But I really thought that was more the case than it really is. Way, way, way leaning towards the wrong idea. So, I mean, seriously, that whole time I was in LA hanging out in Van Nuys, you know, Alex, I'm pretty sure had his shop. He was getting his shop started and everything. And I think that was when he was like, you know, I'm going to try to push this one down a little bit. There we go. You know, when he was actually getting his shop established. I don't remember what the year was. I will tell you that I left LA in 2016. I was in San Jose 2017, however. But it's just kind of a shame because what I'm getting at is that like now, if I had this knowledge and I was like in LA, like in that situation, I could probably go work for Alex. He might actually, you know, take me on as an apprentice, but I ain't in anywhere near that area. And the thing is that it would be like ideal as well because I could also, you know, work for my friend. The thing is that like, you know, he couldn't pay me very much money, but like to have two jobs like that, now suddenly you can possibly make that work out. You might be able to make enough money. That will get you into trouble though in a place like LA because if you lose one job, well, now you're in a lot of trouble. Okay, on that note, before my brain caffeine addiction gets into trouble, I'm going to take a quick break and go put a spot of tea on. Oh man, these are like so much easier to work with than those LEDs. Beautiful. That one went in very, very well. I think people may shy away from using this much flux because they don't have good techniques for cleaning it up. And that's totally understandable, but they're missing out, right? I still want to figure out, I don't want to use, oh, where'd you go? There you are. Man, I'm glad I caught that. This thing landed right on top of another resistor that was already soldered. It was kind of camouflaged. But having said that, I still would like to not use more flux than more flux is necessary. I only want to use a minimal amount of excessiveness, if that makes any sense. Frugal excess. Oh, I see what's happening. I was getting caught on this thing. Awesome. I think we're good. The transistors, and just for lack of a better, I don't know, I'm just going to go ahead and work with the that top one. I probably should see how that one goes before I try the other ones, but That was a nice sizzle when I hit that flux. Hold down the more of the corners like that, maybe, and see what happens. Yeah. I think it's better to be flat, honestly. That one I think is flat. I think that one's okay. I don't want to say anything yet and jinx what I'm doing so far. Wow. See what almost happened? It's trying to teleport to the ninth dimension. This is the importance of flux. I kid you not. That is the only thing that prevented this thing from just going flying. And I don't have any more of these. So this is not necessary for the LED chaser, I don't think. So it's just been a case where this area would not have been lighting up. And I knew that this solder was going to come in handy someday. Let me see if I can remove some of that, but it's fine. Didn't mean to get so much on there, but you know how it goes. Not the best angle to work with. I'm trying not to hit that diode there either. I don't think I'm anywhere near it. I kind of am, so I need to be careful. Suddenly I've got yeses going for the one in my head. I was watching, I think I maybe had seen it before, but this documentary on Yes called Family Trees. No, actually, I think what it was is it's a series called Family Trees, and they were probably the first of the series was Yes, because a lot of what they were getting this from was from the Yes box set, because I used to have that box set, and I remember in that box set, part of the really awesome book that you get when you get these box sets. One of the reasons why you get these box sets is was this family prog rock family tree, showing like how all of these musicians moved around from all these various different bands and where they came from and where they went to. Jeff Downs, just a quick shout out, like this person who ubiquitous and just there, and you don't know that he's there, and it's like, oh, that guy, okay, how could I have missed that? But at any rate, so where I'm going with all this is that I'm watching this. There's a few things. Okay, let me before we go that, what are we doing next? Let me turn the iron off. Okay, so we got R51 through 60. We still got to do R50. That's a 1K. We did all the diodes. We did all of the transistors. Next, it's wanting us to do the ICs. And we even did more resistors that weren't listed because of reasons. I'm tempted to do all the other components, but it says do the ICs next, so let's just go and do the ICs next, I guess. So interesting little tidbit about Yes. The leader has always secretly, and not secretly really, it's never been a secret, it's just nobody talked about it. Nobody really asked the question. Everybody just assumed the leader of the band Yes has always been Chris Squire. And that is something that I had no idea. And it's wild because if you really look at everything about Yes, I mean, don't get me wrong, like at one point in time, it was Yes belonged to Steve Howe and Jeff Downs. And what they did is they basically kind of turned that into Asia. But that's another story. Okay, so the ground lug for here is 1. And this one. That was the only time I think that Chris Squire was like just let go of it. But the wild thing is that, and maybe not early on, but definitely after he, got control again, and in terms of musically, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm getting at is that he paid the checks. He was the one that collected the money and dispersed it to the rest of the band members. I mean, that makes him the band leader by every stretch. Now, in terms of the creative, leadership and so forth, well, he definitely had a large say in the pie, but they were very, very democratic, but they were also very political. Like, you had to fight for your right to have your part in the song. And that's ultimately why Bill Bruford left, because he was just like, you know what, I'm just done, Like, I've got to go, in order for me to get my way, I've got to go talk to this guy and convince him to work with me, but in order to do that, I've got to help him convince this other person to do what he wants, and then he'll go and get these two people to back up this idea, And then we could push out that idea and use this instead, and then the song will be what I want it to be. Bill Bruford was like, you know what, King Crimson is calling, and they're much cooler. Let's try the other tweezers for this. The one person who actually was like calling for a lot of creative and was also like, pushing for more rehearsal, more better performance, really, the Frank Zappa of the group in that regard was John Anderson. And John Anderson, oh my goodness gracious, I had no idea like how passionate he was. And he must have grown up in a pretty tough household. Because he looks like a very delicate individual. And I mean, he definitely, in many ways he is. Like he's very, into, let me get this over real carefully, Like he wanted the band to record in the forest. He wanted to have all of the power lines running under the ground, and he's like, he was definitely out there on cloud nine, and that's kind of okay for a musician to be that way as long as they're really not. Oh, I never did the thing I said I was going to do, did I? We better do that first. But however, oh man. So he admits this, that he drove Rick Wakeman out of the band. Now, Bill Bruford never said that, he never named any names. To him, it was all just a band thing. And, the band King Crimson could offer him more of what he wanted at the time. Okay, so but yeah, John Anderson, wow, and I respect this. Don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing him at all. But yeah, like it wasn't just him either, man. It was all kinds of things that drove bands like Yes to almost break up. Bands like Rush and Genesis to just completely change their format. And ultimately, Yes had their comeback with Owner of a Lonely Heart. Let me think how I'm going to do this. Here, my other iron tip might work better for this. Well, let me first tell the story of, oh gosh, what's his name? Trevor Horn, right? So Trevor Horn and Jeff Downs had this band called the Buggles. And this is like 1980. And I remember, I mean, that song was like all over the airwaves and especially all over MTV and even VHS, I'm pretty sure. I think like every video music whatever had the rights, you know, like got the rights to play this song or broadcast this performance. And I mean, you know, it was a cool song. It is a cool song. It's super catchy. And I don't know if it was Abbey Road Studios they were at, whatever studios they were at, but like Chris Squire and who else? Steve Howe. You know, they were trying to salvage, you know, Yes. And through the business, they had connections with Trevor Horn and Jeff Downs and the Buggles, and they recruited them as singer and keyboard player respectively. And the story goes that Trevor Horn, like, I mean, he didn't want to be the singer. I think he was happy just being a collaborator with a band like Yes. So the story goes that Trevor Horn just kept asking Chris Squire, you know, okay, well, John Anderson's going to be singing this, right? When's John Anderson going to be here? Is he still in the band? Of course, he wasn't. And finally, they just, you know, he just put two and two together. Nobody directly told him, Trevor Horn, oh, you're going to be the singer. And, you know, I don't know how familiar you are with that era of Yes. I don't think there, yeah, cinema. But no, wait, there wasn't an album. I don't think they just did some songs. And if you had like that box set, you know, they released that stuff later. But it is an acquired taste. All right, how do I want to do this? I guess this way will prevent the electrons from falling out. It just sounds sterile. Like Trevor's singing is just so sterile and without any kind of emotion, which you know works well for that hit song, right? Because it's got that radio crooning, and that kind of helps. Are all 10K, and I believe that's these right here. 103, yeah. So 1030s. These are 10Ks. So let me try to open this up and drop out 6. You can go on YouTube and if you know what these songs are, you can find these semi like pseudo live performances of them. They're not live performances. They're lip syncing and playing along like. But it's just like this is what it's going to look like at a live show. And poor Trevor Horn, man, it's just like he just has no stage presence. It was a disaster. It was just an absolute disaster. So, I mean, Yes was just pretty much dead. Now, the crazy thing is that in these videos, you've got, oh yeah, Alan White as well. He was also not an original member, but um, one of the core members, you know, established members. I mean, Alan White is every bit as much of an influence to Yes as Bill Bruford ever was, in my opinion. He took over after Bill Bruford left, and never, you know, Alan White has always been Yes's drummer ever since. Definitely an underrated drummer. I mean, he is. Here's the thing. So people compare Alan White to Bill Bruford, and you know, it's kind of like, well, You can definitely see where Bill Bruford is better on a number of things, but really, if you compare Alan White to say like Neil Peart, Alan White is an amazing drummer. I'm not saying Neil Peart is not an amazing drummer. I'm just saying, like, if you think Neil Peart's really awesome, you don't know about Alan White, and you need to listen to some of his stuff. The other drummer who goes totally head to head, toe to toe with Neil Peart is Phil Collins, and a lot of people still to this day don't realize how amazing of a drummer that Phil Collins was. We can fix it. Okay, so that's 48. Now we need to jump to 61 through 64. They're all right here. Cool. So Alan White, Steve Howe, Chris Squire. But then you've got these other two dudes, Trevor Horn. And the funny thing is like I knew the name Jeff Downs, right? But when I was watching these videos, I just was like, who is that guy that's trying to look like Harpo Marx that's playing keyboards? And is he actually even playing keyboard? I was like, I doubted that he was actually even playing the part. Okay. I need help. This is fatiguing. Yeah, that's a good word for this process. Very fatiguing. Especially when you run into issues where it's like that because you get frustrated. Like, I may not sound like I'm frustrated, but trust me, this is frustrating. This is also, an exercise in just being chill under pressure. Well, it's not really pressure. Okay, so this is 61 through 64, correct? Yes. I'm like, okay, so who is this guy that looks like Harpo Marx playing keyboards? I mean, his hair. You've got to be kidding me. It's like it was the 80s, man. It was 1980, maybe 81. Maybe 81. So when you do that right there, right, the key is to not move the iron. Only move the tweezers, the component. You won't lift the pad. But it's still a dangerous, risky thing to do. Oh, that's Jeff Downs. And I mean, man, they must have been just like, they were, okay, so first of all, Trevor Horn is wearing sunglasses. You really cannot see, right, what he's really, his eyes. And it's all in the eyes. You have to be a great actor to hide your eyes. And musicians, by and large, are not great actors. Quite the opposite. Very emotional. Things are not really going very well. It's very hard to tell. Now, they're just lip syncing, right? They're not even playing. So that's part of the reason why Jeff Downs doesn't look like he's doing what he's doing. He might not have had a lot of, I'm trying to think. He must have, he had to have written these keyboard parts. And these keyboard parts are like, stuff that are Rick Wakeman caliber in a sense. Okay, let me back up. I really don't have the authority to say anything like that at all. But they're kind of complicated parts, it seems to me. Maybe stuff that Rick Wakeman could play backwards if he was asleep. But lots of changes, lots of things to memorize. No idea how it was recorded, however. But here they are filming this performance. And it just, like I said, it's an acquired taste. Now I can sit back and I can watch it and actually think this is pretty cool because I've heard the song so many times that I'm familiar with it. And that's really, what it takes to like a song is to subjugate yourself to it, 3 or more times such that, it becomes familiar. And it's like at that point, it's either love or hate. Because if you're having to hear it on the radio and you don't love it, well, you're gonna hate it eventually. Okay, so that's 61 through 64. Now we should only have left 49 in terms of resistors. Yeah, and this is the 2.2 meg, 2 meg, just 2 meg. 205, 20, 5 more zeros, that's 2 megs. See, the joke here would be to have like Meg from the Family Guy show up on the screen. And 2 of her, haha. Okay, that landed beautifully. They went on tour, and poor Trevor Horn had to actually play in front of an audience. Sing in front of an audience that wanted to hear John Anderson. It was at that point that things were so bad that Chris Squire actually jumped out of the picture. And this is the only time I'm sure that he was not part of the picture. And it was a very short time. It didn't last very long. Because what ended up happening is that, and I don't know why, it could have been financial, man. It could have bankrupted Chris Squire. He had no choice but to sell the band off or whatever. And he might have sold the band to the record label, and they put Howe and Downs in charge because they were the only ones left, right? It was just whoever was there in name. So now we have 2 capacitors. And I'm going to use my multimeter and see if I can measure this value real quick. So the only 2 people who cared to, there we go, keep the name yes, were Steve Howe. Steve Howe was like, I don't want to go back. And like they turned it into yes somehow. There's like, that's a whole other story, and I really don't know. I'm sorry, they turned it into Asia. And the thing is that I'm really not a big Asia fan. Now let me back up. When Asia first came out, they had those 2 hit singles on that first album. Really, okay, it doesn't matter, but like this one, I don't want its value to change because this is the timing capacitor. This is the one that doesn't matter so much. It's just the smoothing capacitor. Bypass capacitor. It's just shunting to ground and preventing the CV override from misfiring. Asia had Heat of the Moment and Only Time Will Tell. The other thing they had were great videos to go with those songs. Never forget that. And this was when like rock videos like that, that was one of the first great rock videos, music videos. Only Time Will Tell, Heat of the Moment. I think it was Heat of the Moment was the first one. And they were very artistic. They definitely helped set the stage of things to come. They were shot on film, I believe, not video. I don't even know how much of the band was in the picture there. Okay, so what is this D1? What the heck? Ooh, that's interesting. We'll circle the wagons back around on that one, but that one hit me off guard just now. I'm like, ugh. What is D1? I'll have to look at the Amazon instructions. I've got these diodes, and these are clearly for down here, but that D1. Oh, it's another LED. Somehow, Chris Squire, got control of the band again, and like he was, like the financial leader again. And this is where things get interesting. Like, he had been working with Trevor Rabin. Chris Squire is now working with Trevor Rabin, who, you know, in my opinion, saved Yes. No doubt about it. 90120 is like one of my favorite Yes albums. And I'm a fan of the classic old Yes by and large. I mean, really, Relayer, Tales from Topographic Ocean, that's my jam, that kind of stuff. But like 90120 came out at a time in my life, you know, when I was a teenager. And that was just like one of my favorite albums when I was young. And that would definitely help get me into prog rock. You know, if I had to cite one album, you know, it's kind of weird because I was also into Big Country, and even though Big Country is not really prog, it's, you know, they're a cool band, man. Like if you like prog, the chances are you like Big Country too. Okay, I've got to use some tweezers to try to get this thing open. This, I don't know where the seams are, and I've got very little. I'm going to take my glasses off. There we go. They got to be real careful because you use too much force, these things will go flying. Now, don't worry, I've got other diodes in case I lose these. These are 4148s, which are just your small signal switching diodes. And I have no idea what their function in the circuit is. One thing I like about John Anderson is that, you know, he's a fan of, like, you know, if you do something and it's kind of like a success and so forth, you want to think twice before you just revisit it. You know, it's kind of like, hey, we did it, you know. And unfortunately, you know, the business just doesn't, it's not conducive to that, unfortunately. Because that really is the way you should do things, in my opinion. You should just keep trying to be original and do new things and look for new things as an artist. Okay. Now these, I've definitely never soldered one of these before. Okay, that's the stripe end, I'm sure. And the stripe end is the cathode, which is that way. This is just bizarre. It's like a cylinder. Very weird. I think it's okay. Ooh. Yeah, I don't really want to try to push that down because it's like it's just going to roll, right? There's no real flat edge to that. Very interesting. So Yes has got this crazy success with 90210. I mean, just I so wish I'd gone to see them live. That was just an amazing tour. I've seen, you know, live footage from it, and there's also a live album thing that they put out called the Solos. It was very interesting. And, you know, to tell you the truth, I mean, even though it was kind of a disappointment, I really thought that Big Generator was an amazing album too. I love Big Generator, but a lot of that is just because I'm a drummer, and that stuff is just absolutely a blast to drum along with and to learn, you know, to learn those drum parts. As I said, man, Alan White's another one of those drummers where, like, if you're a fan of Rush and Neil Peart, you just really haven't paid attention to him. A lot of great music ahead for you to discover. So here's the funny part though. So John Anderson, as we said before, you know, like he was the creative band leader by and large for all that classic Yes, and he was such a stickler for getting things right, you know, and really arguing for his way. I mean, he had no problem yelling at people if he needed to, and pushing people really hard, you know. They're just like, man, leave me alone. And he kind of drove people out of the band. And so the thing is that like now he's in this second, maybe third iteration of Yes, however you want to look at it. Things get really weird, you know, trying to think of which iterate, if there's versions and so forth. But really, this is like the second major version of Yes. You got the first major version, and things just get really weird. It's kind of hard to say. It's almost just like limbo, purgatory land. But this definitely is a defined band again, with a very unique sound. So we did all the corners, yeah? Okay, so this is all that's left is just to battery clip. So here we are now, and it's almost as if Chris Squire has got someone to fight on his side now against John Anderson. So in other words, like, we got John back in the band because we have to. I mean, we need his voice. But it's like, man, if we could just convince John to just hang out and chill, it's like, why do you care how the song goes? Why do you care what, it's just, we got this, man. Let us do all the song and you just sing it, and and maybe you can write some lyrics or something. I'm totally paraphrasing at this point, but essentially it was like, hey, John, just shut up and sing. And like, John is not really a rollover. He's not a pushover. And so, after a couple albums and a couple tours like that, I guess he said, like, you know what? Nope. And man, he screwed those guys over so bad. He did, man, and in a glorious way, because they kind of had it coming in a way. It's like you just can't tell someone like that to shut up. And so what John does is he goes and he gets Rick Wakeman and Bill Bruford and Steve Howe. I think what it was is that John Anderson was like, hey guys, we've got to play some classic Yes songs when we play this new stuff out live. We've got to do more classic stuff. Now I think I'm done, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this solder. The fans want to hear what they're most familiar with. And I'm telling you, man, it's not a situation where like these bands are like playing these classic songs so much that the fans are booing because they're playing the hits and the classics, right? No, that's not happening at all. It's like people are taking pee breaks because like they're playing these new songs. It's like, I don't want to hear this. So take a break. Okay, yes, it's time to go take a break. What am I looking for? There they are. Did you hear me opening up that many drawers trying to find what I'm looking for? Well, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe, and the Evening of Yes songs. That is a true prog litmus test. Separate the men from the boys when it comes to prog rock. We can get into some King Crimson too, if you want to. That stuff is also some more serious progs. But that Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe, man, because like it's 1989. Like prog is so dead that it was turned into pop, by a 90120, and even Yes and Genesis, right? They're doing pop songs. And then Yes, Genesis was always trying to do pop songs, anyways. Though it's not like they sold out or anything when they were, with Phil Collins. I Know What It's Like in Your Wardrobe was their first hit song, and that was a minor hit at best, but still, wonderful song. You got to sell records and you got to have some hit songs in order to keep going. But anyways, all right, switch back over. All right, let me clean this up. And so like, really, so like what's the moral of the story is that, so here we are now, You've got Yes with Trevor Rabin and Chris Squire and Tony Kaye and Alan White, and it's awesome, but it's already starting to get kind of old. To be quite honest, like, I was not a fan of Talk, and I didn't really consider even listening to the Ladder or Magnification because I was so disappointed in Talk. And it wasn't until like 10 years after Magnification came out that I even listened to those. Like, I was into Keys to Ascension long before I listened to those studio albums, because I just really, my fault, I assumed that they were not going to be good, and they are good. Talk is okay. I still don't really care for it that much. I don't like the Division Bell by Pink Floyd. I think that is a boring album. Like, I don't know why people like that album and they don't like the Final Cut, because it's like they're both just as depressing as it's like, oh. Now The River, however, that was awesome. I was like so pleasantly surprised by The River. I think that's what it's called. That's like the most recent one that they did. That's like this weird journey through, their past in a way. A musical journey. It's really cool. I love what they did with it, how they took these ideas and they turned them into, it's kind of like they copied themselves, like, in a way that would not be violating copyright. Like, they truly, it's like they're inspired by these ideas, and they truly write original material inspired by these ideas, kind of thing. Now, that may be mincing words, but yeah, that's really what was going on with that, I think. Okay, I'm at 9 volts. Trying to press down really hard on that. It works. Let's get a battery clip on that real quick. There we go. Got a hangnail. That's awesome. So finally what happens in this little Yes story that I was telling is that John Anderson gets invited back into Yes, breaks away, forms a real Yes, and forces the fake Yes to join them. I kid you not, man. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Power this up. I think it has diode protection. I can't remember. It's actually better to do ground first, but whatever. There it is. So now I see what everything is. That's very interesting. Okay. So I was not expecting these to blink on and off. And I'm trying to think like how it knows to do that. We'll have to backwards engineer the circuit to figure that one out, because it's not part of the schematic that we have over here. Let's see if there ain't no transistors in this diagram. Just the 2 ICs and all the external components necessary to make it work. So, but yeah, that's our clock signal right there. And that capacitor I was talking about, that resistor, if we change those, it would change the rate that it's doing this. But you'll see that like every blink of this, it's actually, chasing around. But the question is how does it know to do this? So I'm wondering if there's like another pin off the decade counter, or if there's some way to like just get a cycle of 2 while it's still like, doing a cycle of 10. I don't know. I don't care right now. I'm just happy that it works.